Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ridge Security webinar. Today, you are going to meet the first cybersecurity robot that can perform penetration testing almost without human intervention. To get started, let's have a look at the agenda. I'm going to use about 25 minutes to answer three basic questions. Why should you care about penetration testing? How does RidgeBot work? And what can RidgeBot do for you? Let's start with my first bullet. Why should you care about penetration testing? And to ensure that we're all on the same page, I will define penetration testing as the practice of testing computer systems, networks, and web applications to find security vulnerabilities that an attacker could exploit. Exploit is the key word which differentiates penetration testing from vulnerability scanning. We'll discuss this difference in a later part of the presentation, but we still need to provide you an answer for why should you care. If you're like most security professionals, you have probably spent millions of dollars to defend your network, but the bad guys are still getting in. And the senior staff is probably asking you, when are you going to have this under control? But the hard truth is that the more tools you buy, the busier you become. Vulnerability scanners, for example, routinely find thousands of vulnerabilities, but you don't have the time or the staff to fix all the critical vulnerabilities, let alone the medium and low risk vulnerabilities. You need a solution that can find the vulnerabilities that are actually exploitable. There's an old saying that says you have to think like a criminal to catch a criminal. Well, the same saying is true with hackers. You have to think like a hacker to catch a hacker. But we're not doing that. Instead, we are investing large sums of money to buy defensive technologies designed to block a hacker or set off alarms. And we are all trying our hardest to cover all possible entry points. But all it takes is one vulnerability and it's game over. Therefore, we need to think like a hacker. We need a new strategy. A major reason why our defenses have been inadequate is that historically we've had a different mindset than a hacker. 20 years ago, the philosophy was to build perimeter walls around our networks. So the focus was on firewalls, IDSs, and antivirus. This is when our defenses were hard on the outside but soft on the inside. If the hacker breached the perimeter, he could do almost anything he wanted to do. 10 years ago came capitulation. We gave up trying to keep the bad guys out and essentially installed alarm systems. The philosophy was that if we couldn't stop them, we should at least know they are in our network as soon as possible. Hence, breach detection, incident response, and endpoint protection became popular. But this wasn't very satisfying either because hackers often defeated these systems and there were many false alarms. Furthermore, it was a reactive approach to security, which wasn't very satisfying. The future of security is an offensive approach to defending the network. This requires us to think like a hacker and build automation tools that can intelligently launch real-world attacks against the network. The goal is to fix the vulnerabilities we have found before the hacker finds them. To put this in perspective, let's look at this chart from Gartner, which shows emerging security technologies over time. Two technologies have been resurrected and morphed into the future. Breach and attack simulation, which is on the left of the chart, is not now called network penetration testing, and risk-based vulnerability management is now called vulnerability assessment. Ridgeway is at the heart of these two new technologies. If you're still using legacy vulnerability scanners and manual penetration testing, you are probably overwhelmed by the cost and the time that it takes to use these tools. For example, vulnerability scanners are notorious for producing thousands of vulnerabilities that often overwhelm IT departments. Most IT managers don't have the time to fix all of the critical vulnerabilities, let alone the medium and low risk vulnerabilities. Furthermore, they have no idea which CVEs are actually being exploited in the wild. Many of them could be in the low or medium risk category. Nevertheless, they patch as many critical vulnerabilities as they can, and they hope for the best. One of the problems with penetration tests is that it's a very manual process that requires highly skilled personnel. And while one pen tester may be comfortable using PHP with a SQL backend, they may not be as comfortable with Ruby on Rails or the new frameworks such as Vue or React. As a result, you can get very inconsistent results with manual testing. It all depends on the tester's skill, knowledge, determination, and available time. To address these pain points, we have developed RidgeBot. It uses artificial intelligence, a cybersecurity knowledge base, and state-of-the-art hacking engine. RidgeBot recognizes vulnerabilities and will run multiple exploits through these vulnerabilities, just like a real attacker. Every successful exploit is documented so you can duplicate it and have confidence that it is a real vulnerability. RidgeBot does not require skilled personnel, which makes it very affordable. Furthermore, you can run it on a regularly scheduled basis so that you can be sure your network is always secure. So let's go answer the question, how does RidgeBot work? RidgeBot can be deployed as either an appliance or a virtual machine. To run a penetration test, you simply connect RidgeBot to the network and give it a range of IP addresses to test. It immediately starts scanning and building a database of assets, their operating systems, services, network protocols, open ports, network topology, reachable IP addresses, vulnerabilities, and much, much more. This process is sometimes called fingerprinting. Once it has the fingerprints, it then uses artificial intelligence to launch iterative, multi-vectored attacks that exploit vulnerabilities in the targeted systems. RidgeBot will also attempt to access sensitive information and escalate its privileges. The ultimate goal is to gain administrative access, just like a real hacker. A key feature of RidgeBot is that it generates a comprehensive report detailing the vulnerabilities it has found and how they were exploited. At this point, I hope you see how RidgeBot is different from the competition. Clearly, it is not a vulnerability scanner or a vulnerability management system, because we actually launch multi-vectored attacks to validate or derive vulnerabilities. We don't just report on patches that are missing. We are also not a breach attack simulator. RidgeBot launches real attacks and responds in real time. It is not based on predicted responses that may not accurately reflect your network. And when compared to other semi-autonomous penetration testing tools, we are far ahead of them. RidgeBot is truly an autonomous tool that provides virtually hands-free driving. Let's look deeper into RidgeBot's core technologies. Starting with the discovery phase, RidgeBot works like many other scanners in the market, but it has some important innovations in asset profiling, smart crawling, and weak link searches. These enhancements provide a more comprehensive database of the attack surfaces it can exploit. What really makes RidgeBot different, though, from the competition is how we exploit the suspected vulnerabilities. Most vendors will only list the vulnerabilities it has found with their scans without actually trying to exploit the vulnerabilities. In other words, they make a single pass and don't validate that the vulnerability is real. But RidgeBot goes further. It develops a list of attack strategies that can be deployed and iterates through them. This allows RidgeBot to acquire real-time information that it uses to generate new attack strategies. The goal is to move deeper into the network, discover more vulnerabilities, and elevate privileges. This is how hackers think, and it is exactly how advanced persistent threats work. RidgeBot has three back-end systems: Ridge Intelligence, Ridge Brain, and RidgeBot. RidgeBot contains one of the world's largest exploit databases, which borrows from the open community, third-party intelligence, and Ridge Security's own global research. Ridge Security has deployed a large number of nodes in regions where attacks are prolific. Ridge Brain uses artificial intelligence to determine how to exploit a vulnerability. It is in a feedback loop with RidgeBot so that it can use real-time data to modify an exploit and probe deeper into the network. Ridge Intelligence contains dozens of modules that are highlighted at the bottom of the slide. Things like threat intelligence, vulnerability intelligence, fingerprint rules, and privilege escalation procedures. Okay, we're on to part 3. Let's talk about what RidgeBot can do for you. RidgeBot can help most enterprises, organizations, web application teams, DevOps, security ops, ISVs, anyone responsible for software security to affordably and effectively test their systems. It can be used to perform continuous security testing for DevOps, security ops that need to ensure the security of each new software release. You can score your blue team and adjust your security policy based on RidgeBot's recommendations. It provides a test report to satisfy your compliance auditor, and it can assist your team in incident response. Here's a high-level view of RidgeBot's value propositions. It is automated and continuous. It is agentless and plug and play. It has full attack path visibility. It is iterative and will exploit known vulnerabilities. And it has 0 false positives. We will go over each one of these in the following slides. RidgeBot is a fully automated penetration testing tool. It automates asset discovery, topology drawing, attack surface discovery, and it generates multiple exploits. You can schedule the test to occur at a future time, on a recurring basis, or when a specific event is detected. RidgeBot is easy to install. Simply connect it to the network and give it a range of IP addresses to test. There are no agents to install, and you don't need expensive security personnel to run the tests. RidgeBot presents detailed attack information such as the attack path and risk details. It ensures that security teams understand what is at risk, how it can be exploited, and how to prevent an attack. As we've discussed earlier, RidgeBot can perform iterative attacks on host systems. Now, in this particular example shown here, RidgeBot discovered a weak password using a dictionary attack to gain access to a database on a targeted website. Separately, but simultaneously, RidgeBot exploited an arbitrary file read vulnerability, which gave it access to the website's root directory. It then launched a new attack by using a SQL shell to upload malicious code to the root directory. This code enabled it to expose the web shell. In this attack, multiple vulnerabilities are used jointly and iteratively. Each attack is driven by RidgeBrain, the smart decision engine without human involvement. As mentioned earlier, RidgeBot will attempt to escalate privileges and acquire sensitive information. This is typically done through password cracking, using techniques like dictionary attacks, credential stuffing, pass the hash, and a variety of other techniques. As I mentioned before, if you've been using vulnerability scanners in the past, then you know how frustrating it is to be told that you have thousands of critical vulnerabilities that must be patched. On top of that, there are thousands of medium and low risk vulnerabilities that also need patching. But a little known fact is that 3% of the vulnerabilities are actually exploitable. The big question is, which ones? With RidgeBot, there is no guessing. We will provide conclusive evidence that specific assets contain vulnerabilities that can be exploited. And we show you how it is done. But more importantly, there are far fewer patches needed to keep your system secure. Now, RidgeBot has several controls that allow the user to modify the attack profile. For example, you can rate limit the attack to make it stealthier. And you can choose the type of plugins you want the system to use to minimize side effects to mission critical systems. And finally, RidgeBot will automatically uninstall any applications or folders that may have been used to carry out attacks. So in conclusion, RidgeBot clearly demonstrates the potential impact of a breach. It can easily replace the skilled personnel needed to run manual penetration tests. It strengthens your defensive capabilities. It satisfies your compliance auditor. It is easy to use, and data security is guaranteed. Thank you very much.